Welcome to the Fresh Vending Podcast, where we discuss how smart vending machines are revolutionizing fresh food accessibility for both creators and consumers.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Fresh Vending Podcast. I am your host, Nathan Downs, joined by my co-host, Isaac Wu.
Hello.
Isaac, so what do we want to talk to the people about today?
Yeah, great question. I think it's really important to talk about the different applications of a smart fridge, right? Because different companies have different needs and they seek smart vending for different reasons. And so we thought we'd maybe give some examples of some of our clients, but this is definitely not something that's unique to us. It's all smart vending solutions clients, and it's something that you can think about as you decide what the application is for your business.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because normally when we talk to people, they want to talk about ROI typically. So what is ROI? When they think about the return on their investment, they're thinking about a lot of times cash, like how much cash am I putting into the bank, after a certain period of time. And that's one application is ROI, or the cash that you're getting out of it from your investment. But there's several types of ROI. It can be that there's a corporate wellness initiative where this just fits the mold perfectly. It can be whether it's an amenity, it can be about accessibility, it can be about a lot of different things. But why don't we start off with talking about cold hard cash?
Yeah.
So we get this question a lot for our company FoodSpot, and people come to us and say, "How much can I make with a smart vending machine?" And we try to respectfully, one of the answers that I commonly give is, how much money can you make in a restaurant? And people kind of look a little perplexed. And I said, well, are you selling hot dogs? Are you selling filet mignon? And then usually that gets the gears turning, where I think pretty quickly they understand that it's about, what are you selling? What's the location? Foot traffic, those types of things. And then what's the demographic? The people that are there. If you're not, giving them products that are truly relevant, then having high accessibility doesn't really matter, right? But I think in simplistic terms, we have customers that the break even is usually around $40 a day that you have to sell with one of our fridges, and that's kind of broad strokes. But we have customers that sell $50 a day, and they're perfectly happy about it because their ROI is not focused on cold hard cash. It's one of those other categories that I mentioned. And then we have other customers that, in their first month or so, they'll have a sales day that breaks $1,000. And you can see the spectrum between a $50 sales day and a $1,000 sales day is pretty dramatic, but I think it just illustrates exactly what we said of, that it's really about so many of those other factors of thinking about it a lot more like a brick and mortar and a lot less like a vending machine.
Yeah, and even within the same industry, there are different applications, right? So even just talking about the sales day numbers, we have some universities that merely want to provide 24/7 fresh food in a dorm or a student union, and they're happy with the fact that the fridge is there. And whether it sells $50 a day, $200 a day, $400 a day, they're happy because the students know they can always get fresh food. And we have other university dining programs that think, okay, well, we want to get a big bang for our buck, and they stock the fridge with food that students can't get anywhere else on campus. And it's really high quality food, like a Mediterranean bowl or this kind of sushi roll or any other, high protein, good quality meal that you can think of out of this fridge. And they sell, I don't know, $1,200, $1,300 a day sometimes.
Yeah, there's those programs that hit that. And I think that that's a real paradigm shift from saying, I think when most people think of a vending machine, it's usually like a last ditch effort to say, I have to put something inside of my body that, just to keep myself going. Whereas in these environments, like the example that you just gave of like our top performers, just in terms of like revenue, they're turning it into a destination, and they're putting not only those kind of items in there, but sometimes it's exclusive to the fresh food Microstore. So it's like, oh, this is the only place I can get it. And when you think about concepts today, like, Netflix original content, there's a reason that those things really thrive, because when you have something that's truly unique and it's a destination. It builds, traffic, it builds loyalty, and that's really, it's just, again, it's a mind shift away from thinking of it like a vending machine.
Yeah, totally. Let me break another rule for you. I mean, even with that, right? Nathan was just talking about how our microstores are typically stocked with food that's intentional fuel. I'm going to go to the microstore to get this salad, whereas vending machines are an afterthought. Oh, I feel hungry. I'm going to pass by this vending machine. Oh, it looks like there's a bag of pretzels. I'm going to get that. Well, we have some operators that, for example, put the vending machine in their lobby, their condos, and they get, cakes or cupcakes from the local bakery. Now, would I say that's like an intentional, someone goes to the lobby of their condo to get a meal? Not necessarily. But because it's a smart fridge, they can put items like a cupcake or, banana bread in there from the local bakery. And it's an afterthought, but that's exactly what they want for their community right there. So that's, yet again, breaking another norm where our microstores are used for something else than we imagined.
Yeah, I think digging a little bit deeper on that, on the amenity side. So we talked about, the dramatic swings of like cold hard cash from ROI, but when we dig into the amenity side, there's what you said or how I kind of interpret it as like you're checking the box, right? So that could be checking the box. We have a USDA manufacturer in Missoula, Montana, and for them, all they had was, kind of the traditional vending. So candy bars and, maybe sodas and things like that. And, they're not going to, in that type of environment, they're not necessarily going to bring in, a chef and all these things that are probably overkill and way too expensive for their program. But what they did do is put items that are more like what you might find at like a 7-Eleven, where it's, there's some sliced bread sandwiches. Maybe you can get like a Hot Pocket out of there, maybe some fruit cups, things like that are an absolute step up from, eating a candy bar for lunch if you forgot to bring your lunch with you. But it's a win, it's a win for them, and they get to check that box. And it really makes a statement to their community that, the management cares, we want to take care of you, we want to evolve our program. So that's kind of one, potential direction of amenity that was a win for that particular community. You mentioned, the other direction of, having uniquely crafted meals that are an amazing win for that community. I know one in particular that we just talked about. The fridge is right next to a dining hall that's on a university campus. So it's not like they needed to have that there during those hours, but it's something that was complimentary, especially after hours, after the kitchen closed, where it's just a totally different mindset for that amenity that checks the after hours box. And it's not to say that it's any better or worse than the other one, because it's tailored for that environment. It's a win in both those environments, with very different level of effort and forethought going into it, and very different, kind of outcomes on the revenue side. But it's all about understanding your environment and properly, tailoring the level of effort that goes into it once you get out of it.
And the truth about it, Nathan, is that no matter how far you exceed that $40 a day break-even point, when you make a sale, you can look at that as an operator and say, hey, I provided a meal for someone who could not have a meal before this fridge was there. That's a win, right? Of course, we love to see operators sell a lot, but in these kind of cases where the foot traffic is at thousands of people, selling a few meals a day is sometimes what you want for your community, and they definitely feel cared for in that moment.
Yeah, and then it bleeds out into other examples too. Like we recently launched a 8-hospital network in northern Pennsylvania, where for them, again, it wasn't, is it nice if you have a big ROI? Sure. But what was it really focused on is being able to check that box that the overnight staff anywhere in their healthcare system could say, I can get a quality fresh meal because that's the cornerstone of health. And as an employer, they were able to do that and check that box. So it's, that for them was was mission complete. I think there was another vendor that we talked to recently that's in Los Angeles, and what they did is they took their healthy meals and started putting smart fridges into police stations, and very quickly cut and paste another police station. So for them, it's kind of a mix of having a good ROI, providing a really good amenity for the station, for the police chief. For him, it was about providing that amenity to his community. He didn't really care about the ROI because it's not his business, but he wanted the operator to be sustainable. But now the operator's getting brand exposure. They're getting a good ROI. They're providing a good, good amenity to the community. So it's kind of, and some of them are also those types of hybrids, right? Where you're touching on a few different aspects when you think of, again, what is that return on my investment for, purchasing a smart fridge and operating it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to see. This meal company, even if their intentions were purely business, hey, I want to maybe decrease that customer acquisition cost. I want to put a fridge with my meals in this police station, and maybe when someone tries it, they'll subscribe to my meal plan and they'll be a lifetime customer. Even if that's their pure goal, those police officers are still getting food 24/7 where they didn't have it before. And boom, you created food security there.
Yeah, and the other piece that I think that's a real game changer is, it's one thing to say like, oh, we have brand exposure, and that's kind of a tricky thing, right? Like really measuring that in a lot of scenarios. But I think the thing that's different here is, it'd be one thing if we said, oh, I love this, grain bowl company that's in my neighborhood, and I'd love it if they open up over here. It's not like, you open a brick and mortar, it's costing you many hundreds of thousands of dollars. Whereas if somebody says, I love this smart fridge, can you open one in my office building of 200 people? Well, comparatively, it's a tiny investment that can open up quickly. And if for some reason you don't get the volume of sales or something changes, you can pull out really easily. So I think that's the other piece is, it's great to have this exposure like that one operator did in the police stations in Los Angeles, because they can quickly keep opening. And if for some reason one of those stations doesn't work, they can literally unplug it same day and move it to another station or, another location where they want to have it. So I think that the back end is what makes that brand exposure that much more valuable, because the person understands, they've had that experience as a consumer. They understand what they're getting into, and you can very easily replicate that.
Yeah. The last one I wanted to talk about, Nathan, is the Food Pantry application, which we love to talk about. And this is one where, if you think about a food pantry, it may have raw ingredients, but the people going to this food pantry may not have either the skills or the cookware or the kitchen to make this food, right? And so, and then of course there's that experience of having to go to a food pantry and perhaps the stigma around that, right? But what we love to talk about with our smart fridges is the fact that it can be a 24/7 food pantry that is something totally different from your usual experience.
Yeah, I think you hit on a few things. And for those of you out there, if you've never been in that position where you had to rely on the kindness of others or government resources to get by every day, it can be incredibly challenging. So as Isaac mentioned, just imagine, usually these types of operations have pretty limited hours. So you have to change your entire schedule. And guess what? If it's during the weekdays, 4 hours a day, well, then you can no longer have employment during those times, right? So you really have to live and structure your life around these things. And if you get there and maybe you are familiar with the ingredients, maybe you're not, maybe you know how to cook the ingredients, maybe not, maybe you don't even like the ingredients that they have available, but you just, there's that cliche, like beggars can't be choosers, which I don't really care for in this application, because we're talking about human beings. And we throw away so much food every year in this company or this country that there's no reason that people that are down on their luck and need a little bit of support shouldn't still have that level of humanity and dignity and being able to eat something that's actually appetizing, that's conducive to their schedule with family and work and everything else, and kind of have that dignity through the process. So yeah, I think that's something that all of those things continue, those factors that I just mentioned continue to erode the individual. So thinking about how can technologies like a smart fridge give them 24-hour access on their terms. It's food that's ready to eat, whether it's a salad or a microwavable lasagna, whatever it is. It's appetizing to them. It's ready immediately. It's very easy to apply like subsidies through our system, whether it's on a swipe card or maybe it's on our smartphone app. So yeah, I think there's some really big opportunities there that we're working on and really excited about that can fundamentally change kind of the supply chain of food that is donated in the U.S. and set up for those that need a little help.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So we've talked about using smart vending, or in this case, a smart fridge, in the context of a 24/7 food pantry as an amenity for your community. Say if you're owning a condo or managing a condo, maybe as a corporate wellness solution if you have a big hospital network, or just a way for your employees to get food at a manufacturing facility. Maybe it's, again, food security and amenity at a university, or brand exposure for your meal kit company. I mean, there's so many applications for this smart fridge technology, and the more conversations there are in the US about this, whether it's with our company or others, the better.
I think the other one that you forgot is the cold hard cash one, right? The other big ROI that, and again, we smile when we talk about it. That's the most obvious one, but that's the other one that is easiest to talk about. Yet at the same time, it's so complex for the reasons that we mentioned earlier. But for any of these, different kind of reasons that somebody gets into smart vending, and usually it is a hybrid of these things, even those that are very amenity focused that want to check the box, still at a bare minimum want to at least break even. Usually nobody ever scoffs at a little bit of extra revenue coming in. But for all those reasons, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, and it's really why we have this podcast, is to be able to talk about these things, because every single day, operators from across the United States and beyond come to us and say, hey, here's who I am. This is what my business does. Here's what I'm kind of thinking about. So hopefully for those of you out there that are in those types of positions, you can watch this podcast or listen in and just get a little bit more orientation on maybe where you fit in the mix, and maybe some of the considerations that you ought to be thinking about to help inform you to make the best decision possible for both your business and then also the community that you serve. Yeah. So, I mean, whatever you're thinking could possibly be a use case for smart vending. We've probably heard it, and if we haven't, we'd love to talk still, even if you sell dog food, right, Nathan? Yes, we do have one of our operators that sells high-end dog treats. You may have heard us talk about them before. Very unique application, but that just goes to show that the sky is kind of the limit, and there's not traditional boundaries when it comes to this type of technology. So nobody has all the answers, and there's always new applications and new conversations. So if you'd ever like to reach out and talk with somebody from our team that's a subject matter expert on smart vending, we don't have all the answers, but we have a lot of experiences, and we love to share and learn. So don't hesitate to reach out to us either through the website. You can schedule some time with us, or just email us at hello@launchfoodspot.com. And there it is, another episode of the Fresh Vending Podcast. This has been really fun. Thank you for listening. You can always like and subscribe, comment with any questions or even ideas that you have. And of course, rate us and review us anywhere you get your podcasts. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the show this week. If you're interested in learning more about smart vending platforms, you can visit us at launchfoodspot.com. I'm Nathan Downs, and you've been listening to the Fresh Vending Podcast.